The snippets stage is where all of our work starts to come together. There are broadly 4 goals in the snippet stage. They are, firstly, organising your evidence. Secondly, managing originality. Thirdly, adding signposting and generally linking your content together. And finally, completing tasks. So we'll work through each of those 4 in turn. So to begin with, organising your evidence. Hopefully you can see the snippets stage looks a lot like the structure stage, but there's a little bit more going on. You have the structure element in the center, but this time you can also see the snippets organized into your structure. And there are 2 kinds of snippets. There are custom snippets, which are annotated with a letter T. And there are also source snippets, which are the pieces of evidence you've brought from other places, which are annotated with a little paperclip. Custom snippets contain your own words, like linking paragraphs and signposting, and we'll talk more about those later. Source snippets, the ones with paperclips, are the ones that contain evidence, usually from someone else's work, from one of the sources that you imported in the Sources tab. We'll talk about managing originality next, but for the purposes of organising your evidence, the snippet stage is really helpful because of the simple drag and drop and move functionality that allows you to shuffle the story that you're telling around until you're happy. We've already talked about the iterative nature of writing. You put an outline structure together, do some research, organise that, which informs changes to the structure, which informs more research, and you go back and forth iterating until you're happy. Here in the snippet stage, by simply organising and reviewing the evidence you've captured so far, you're likely to start considering other reading and changes to the structure. For those of you who've watched the earlier videos, you can see that the structure and the layout here is different. Changes have been informed by some of the reading in this piece of work. Sections have been renamed and reorganised, and you can see that there's a lot of change happened. This is good. This shows that I'm thinking about the question and making sure that the structure and the evidence I'm using are fit for the piece of work that I'm trying to put together. Another part of organising your evidence relates to the unsorted snippets. You may recall that in the sources stage, you can capture information not just specific to each of your sections, but there's also a unsorted option which allows you to capture information but not place it specifically into any part of your structure. If you look over to the right hand side of the snippet stage, you can see unsorted snippets. Let's click that. In here I've captured 5 pieces of evidence, and I can pick these up and drag them into my structure once I've figured out where I want to put them. So let's take a look at this one, Antecedents of Science Fiction. Here we have a subsection, science fiction before the genre, which is a sensible place to put any evidence related to antecedents. So let's drag this one in here. If I want to change my mind, I can still move that around, or I can drag it back into the unsorted snippets area. The unsorted snippets tab is a really useful buffer to allow you to organise your evidence better. Let's talk about the second goal, which is managing originality. When we've taken evidence from someone else's work, like these paperclips here, we can't just copy and paste that into our own work without recognising or referencing that original author's work. On the right-hand side, you can see these red crosses, or these green ticks. The red crosses tell us that there is an originality issue. We haven't dealt with the originality of that particular snippet. The ones with the green ticks, like this one at the bottom, we have looked at. Let's take this first one. When I click on that snippet, you can see the snippet editor on the right-hand side of the window shows me the full contents of that snippet. I'm given a couple of options here to paraphrase and summarise, or to mark this as a quote. Let's start with the second one. If I mark this as a quote, that's all that happens. You can see this has become a green tick. And in our final published document, this piece of evidence will be quoted and cited in full. Let's unmark that as a quote and look at the paraphrase summarise. When we click paraphrase summarise, we're invited to paraphrase the content, to write it in our own words or to put it into context. Paraphrasing and summarising are skills that you'll develop as you grow as a writer. By clicking this full screen icon in the top corner of the snippet editor, you get a dialog that allows you to see the original content and your paraphrased version side by side. So in this box, you're given the opportunity to paraphrase. Let me show you an example that I've already done. So let's look at this one. If we edit the summary, you can see the original content up here, and here you can see the paraphrased or summarized version of that. I'm happy with that content, and I'm going to move forward. Let's move to the third goal, which is signposting and linking your content together. We've talked quite a bit about source snippets. Those are the ones with the paper clips and the originality check. But custom snippets can be added here from the toolbar by clicking the snippet button, and you get a new snippet with the T annotation. So let's show you how this works. Here in the introduction, we can add a snippet, and we get a custom snippet, which we can add our own content to here on the right hand side. As you can see, I've created a nice signposting snippet there, which acts as an introduction to the entire piece of work. And you can put as many of these into your structure as you like, and you'll need them to link evidence together, to summarize sections, to introduce sections, and to draw your own conclusions or make your own observations. The final of the 4 goals is completing tasks. You could have created tasks earlier in the structure section, and of course you can continue to create tasks here using the task button on the toolbar. And you can see a number of tasks here inside this window. You can check them off now. You can see on the right hand side there's a checkbox area. So if you recall earlier, we had a number of tasks introduced to our structure from the question tab when we identified our open concepts. One of our open concepts was the word modern. I've created a custom snippet under here in which that has been defined and explored, and therefore I've been able to check this task as done. And there are a number of other tasks throughout the piece of writing that still need to be looked at. So to summarize the snippet stage, this is where all the work comes together. We still haven't seen the finished document. We've not been concerned by formatting or presentation or any of the finessing aesthetic elements that word processors are designed to do. We're still yet to see the review stage, which allows us to take a more holistic view of the piece of work before we move on to publish.